Hogsty.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Hogsty. It is April 2nd when we are recording this episode. Hope you had a nice April Fool's Day. I don't think anyone actually celebrates April Fool's Day. But if you do, I hope you didn't get pranked too badly. It's Alex here with you, of course. I got Steve on the other end. Jamal is at some lacrosse game for some family thing. I don't know. I guess lacrosse is a big Maryland thing now. So
is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think Maryland's like the state that probably puts out the most lacrosse players. I don't even know if lacrosse is played professionally, but it's a big thing in Maryland.
Everything's played professionally at some level. There may be 5 people watching it.
5 people watching it, you get $500 a game, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Does anybody even participate in April Fool's Day anymore? I mean, the world feels like one giant April Fool's at all times nowadays. So.
Yeah, as we continue down this weird-ass timeline of human existence, all you see now are these stupid people doing things on Twitter. Like, no one, it's not like anyone's getting a pie in the face anymore, you know.
I realize it's about like once a week.
You check Twitter? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll have a provocative thought and I'll put it on Twitter.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed.
I did that earlier in the week.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, maybe we should turn that into a thing for the show. Steve's one tweet of the week.
It's whenever I can make the most people get the most people irritated and mad. That's
generally that's what you're trying to do, which
basically,
is fun.
I'll call the team sucky and lousy in some way, shape, or form.
And not to mention, no matter what people say on Twitter, people bitch. Like I could go on Twitter and say I like puppies and sunshine, and people would complain. You know,
I really think Twitter's just bad.
Oh yeah, well,
Twitter's just bad for society. There's
Twitter,
no two ways around it.
More so than all the other social medias, it's probably the worst for it.
It really is. It's an echo chamber of total nonsense and garbage.
Facebook,
I really kind of wish we just get off of it.
Facebook, you use your real name, generally speaking, or nom de plume if like you can get away with. Like people who have stage names are allowed to do it, but that's about it.
Like I think I could have a Steve Thomas.
You probably could. You could get away with that. There's some red tape though that they make you go through for it. Because I have plenty of friends who are like actors and they use stage names, and Facebook like gave them crap for it. Really? And it's like, here's like 500 playbills where I use this name, but you know.
Yeah, I've been Steve Thomas for 6 years on this thing.
Right. You could. I think you could, but they would require some proof. So,
really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just as a general rule and a general principle, I would never do Facebook.
Right.
Either.
I'm just saying though, by making people use their real name, shockingly, they're not as big of an asshole.
I would say that the Hogsty to get off Twitter, were it not for the Washington PR,
stuff. Yes.
Yeah, that's the only reason I can see that's of any value to us at all.
Yeah. Well, so this week I was a little worried we were gonna have a light thing until about noon yesterday, when a whole bunch of crap came out about the team. Alex Smith came or was interviewed. Do you remember who he was interviewed by?
It was Rich Eisen. I listened to it.
Yeah. All right. So Smith was on Rich Eisen and had some things to say about the drama that goes on with the team. I want to start with that.
That was the subject of my weekly tweet, by the way.
Yes, that was. So why don't we start with that topic?
Okay, so Rich Eisen had Alex Smith on for the first time in a long time. I'm not a regular listener of Rich Eisen, but regardless, most of it was fairly innocuous. Alex was selling some sports drink or something. Mm-hmm. And that took up like 5 minutes of the 20 minutes, or at least 5 or 6, 7 minutes. But the controversial part, or I thought it was absolutely 100% truth, but what some of the fans of lesser intellect thought was controversial, and yes, I'm talking to you, out there, is that I forget the question exactly, but Alex ended up saying, in essence, a lot of the nonsense of the Washington that comes out of the Washington front office and the team generally bleeds into the locker room and the on-field product. That's what he was saying.
Right.
That's what he did say. And he said, good teams can avoid this and bad teams can't.
Mm-hmm.
That was the money shot, if you will, from Alex. And, of course, predictably, again, the Washington fans who, are of lesser intellect thought that was just an awful thing to say. And what does he know? And, he's just jealous and he's been gone for years and blah, 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 blah. Name one thing that Alex said in that is not true.
Right. I'm going to read the part of the quote here.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I found it on Fansided. So a little credit to them for writing this all out. All the stuff there, just the entire organization from ownership down, head coach and GM, there's been historically a lot of drama there. It's a big market, obviously. The Capitals got a lot going on, and that organization is really a storied franchise, and there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of distractions. So to say that the stuff going on in the building doesn't infiltrate the locker room or out on the field would be crazy. He goes on from there. It was a whole long interview. What was it, 20 minutes?
Most of it had nothing to do with Washington.
Yeah, but this is how it goes. I'm going to hawk a sports drink, blah, 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 blah. No one cares. And then you say 2 nuggets about something interesting, and that's what people will focus about. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Rich didn't go back to that. I mean, Eisen could have, questioned him about that and gives us some specifics. And what do you mean? And he didn't do any of that. They just moved from there kind of right into the sports drink.
Well, how to put this? We all know what he means, Steve. We all know.
I know, but if somebody said that on our show, we would have gone, hold on. I agree with you, but let's expand on that.
Yeah, sure.
And Rich didn't do that.
Sure.
I didn't think that was controversial at all.
No.
I mean, newsflash, Washington is a terrible franchise.
Right.
It's one of the NFL's worst run franchises, one of the worst owners in American sports. Clearly, the chaos has bled onto the field at times. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
Alex is 100% right. And, yeah, I mean, when he was here, he was being loyal, by not talking, not speaking about it. And when your boss, the owner, invites you to a suite, he went. I don't blame him. He was an employee.
I mean, look, so here's what I would say. A couple of things. One, yes, it has bled onto the field. I'm impressed by how much it hasn't, just totally melted this team. If you were to take the off-the-field crap and say, what should this do to your win-loss? You should be a 1-15 team. That's how bad you should be, based off of all the nonsense that goes on around this team.
Well, you see, they're also willing to spend money, and so they
sure.
spend enough money to bring people in here to keep it most years out of the trash can.
But you do understand what I'm saying. The morale there should be 1-15 bad, or Detroit going 0 for bad multiple years, or was it Cleveland that did multiple years?
Cleveland was the one who did it.
Okay, yeah. So that's where you should be, based off your off the field crap. So I actually give
Washington brings in enough free agents,
right?
And they spend enough money where they can avoid that,
right?
Avoid the disaster.
But I do give credit to guys like Rivera and Gruden. I think they held it together as best they could as coaches. So I give them some credit for that.
Gruden fell apart at the end.
Oh yeah, well everything was pointing towards we are going to blame Jay Gruden and fire him no matter what. We all saw that coming.
Dead man walking there for a while.
Yeah, he was. We all knew he was going into his second to last season or whatever. Yeah, he was on the hot seat from the get go.
I just don't understand why these fans were so upset about what Alex Smith said, though.
Alex Smith said nothing wrong. As you call them, the fans of lesser intellect, which I often consider myself a fan of lesser intellect, honestly. I don't know the high-end X's and O's or a lot of the nuances of football because, I never played at any high level, other than just...
I didn't really mean the X's and O's. I meant,
oh, I know.
The brain capacity of these people is less. That's what I'm talking about.
I think it's fair to say, Steve, I understand the off-the-field PR stuff way better than I do the on-the-field stuff. Yeah. Just because of what I do I've done for a living, and, my historic background. So I understand that. And, yeah, you can't not agree with Smith on this. Of course it's going to impact. Have you ever had a crappy boss? I've had plenty of crappy bosses.
Of course.
Do you know what you feel like when you want to go into work when you have a crappy boss? You don't want to go into work.
Yeah, there's been times when I've had crappy bosses that I have driven in and then sat in a parking lot for 30 minutes because I don't want to go in.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there too.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling ever.
Yeah,
it's like, it's going to be horrible.
You're looking at your building and there's part of you that is dying inside every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. Magnify that by 10. That's what it's like to be in Washington. I wish, look, I mean, there's a group of fans out there who can divorce all this.
Sure.
And just say, we're fans of the team no matter what. I don't know how you guys do that. I lack that ability.
I mean, I can still compartmentalize Dan Snyder is human garbage versus I do love, football and I love my city and there's like a local pride thing. And like, I'm able to do that.
See, there's no local pride for me.
Yeah, I know. And I understand that for you. Yeah. Like, for you was the team, the name, the history, and that's gone. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. I get that for a lot of, like, that's true for half the fan base that used to be here. And that's why you have 10,000 people showing up to games now, not 50 to 100.
If ownership would just understand that they need to respect the fans, they need to respect the women in their office. Don't act like walking toilet bowls.
Right. And don't try to spin don't try and spin every little thing. And I blame, this is one area where I agree with you on Jason Wright. He still thinks like that. He still thinks like that PR move there's a way to PR your way out of this. No, the way to PR your way out of all this situation is to act like an adult, treat people like adults and say, here's where we are, here's what we're going to do to fix it, and actually do it.
I just kind of see through him. I mean, I think he's just an empty smile. He's got a lot of charisma. He's probably a nice guy. If you talked with him.
Yeah, he is a nice guy. He's a very nice guy. And I think he's a very smart guy, but, I
just see right through him.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing I feel like we eventually saw with Kirk Cousins and Robert Griffin. You bring in these guys who are a little too smooth, and they come off feeling phony in the end.
Listen, I mean, Will Smith, the whole Will Smith thing is a good example. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to necessarily rant about that, but I mean, the guy has $1 million smile. He's got charisma oozing from every pore, but then he did something so moronic and stupid. It's just hard to believe.
Right.
And maybe Will Smith was never that guy. Maybe he's just a guy who can turn on charisma when he wants to. And that's kind of what some of these CEO types are like. I think that's
Oh, absolutely.
Frankly, that's Jason Wright.
Yeah, I mean, well, and look, there are a lot of different
Jason
CEO
Wright's
types.
going to go knock out someone on a stage, but don't misunderstand me. But I just think it's a bit phony.
Well, I don't. Jason Wright was a former running back. I don't think he's open hand slapping anybody.
No, and Chris Rock would be in the floor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Jason Wright could kick anybody's ass, I'm sure, if he wants to, because he still has that football player ability.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't doubt that.
And I think he's under 40 still. So
he just, once you get past the exterior, what has the guy done that's good for the franchise?
Yeah, I that's a fair question at this point.
A lot of things have been screwed up under his watch.
Well,
and they're using, like I said, I mean, this name change thing is clearly just subterfuge.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. Well, and it was part of the whole fight between Snyder and Smith and Shar and all that.
Yeah, but it's being used as the PR
now it is.
Subterfuge right now.
That's how they're spinning it. Yes.
Yeah.
The whole Smith thing was very interesting to me. In that that reaction, like you've said, like nothing I've read here or nothing I've heard about it is I would disagree with. I would say absolutely 100% anybody who's ever had a real job in their life would understand this. And even if you've had a shitty job or you worked at McDonald's, then you probably already don't. If you have that kind of job, you don't know what a good job is because you probably go in with low morale.
I did have a job like that.
Yeah.
I worked at Taco Bell when I was 17.
Right. Steve and I argue about Taco Bell online more than any other thing.
It's my favorite restaurant.
I know. It's just...
I had it last night.
I'm sure you did. If I had it last night, I would have been in the bathroom all night.
No. What do you want for dinner? And we always agree. When the younger one doesn't so much always like it, but the older one and I totally agree on it.
All right. What did you get? What?
Taco Bell.
Really quick. What did you get? Did you just go basic burrito or what?
3 regular tacos.
Okay. Corn shell or soft shell?
Hard shell tacos.
Okay.
And then 2 Mexi melts, but you have to special order it because they got rid of Mexi melts, and so you have to order 2 cheese roll-ups and add beef to it. That's the trick.
That's your order.
It's the off menu hack. I mean, that's what I got last night. I have a couple other orders. Sometimes I will do.
Okay, so you have a rotation.
It's mostly that, but it's 75% what I just said. But there are a few other things I will do. Something like they've got a couple burritos I'll do. Those are good.
Do they still have the cheesy Gorgita crunch? Because that was my go-to.
I like the breakfast crunch wraps are really good.
Oh, I've had those. Those are good.
But the problem is the ones where I am located, the Taco Bells don't open till 8 for breakfast.
Oh, you're already on your way to work probably.
Well, I usually stop on the way and get it, but the one that I can kind of hit within reason, I'm there before 8. So.
So you're just sitting there in your car, staring at the Taco Bell. A little part of you dies inside.
It's like, oh well, it's over. My Taco Bell breakfast obsession is over.
Okay, I do love a good fast food breakfast. You know who has good ones? Wendy's. Wendy's has really good fast food.
Wendy's does. See, that's yeah. I'll maybe once every 2 weeks or so hit Wendy's.
Yeah,
breakfast.
Not healthy for you.
Well, it's like I'll just get like a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit.
Right. But
that's not the worst.
I think they have a Baconator breakfast sandwich, which
I don't do that.
Yeah. See, that's my problem. Is I instantly say, "What's the most unhealthy thing on your menu?" That's what I really want.
The pile of bacon.
Yes, here's just a pile of bacon, and that's it. All right, sold. Oh, we put cheese on the bacon so it stays together.
Just make it a little bit worse.
Yes. All right.
That's the cardiac arrest.
Yes, exactly. There's a reason why I don't drive to Wendy's every morning, because that is what would happen. All right. Let's flip over to another topic here. We have a couple things going on with the team that we really need to discuss, and we'll still have to do our safeties piece at some point. All right, next topic I have down is that, one, we have Virginia's about to vote on the stadium. There's been a lot of pushback from delegates from Northern Virginia about not wanting the stadium now, which is interesting. One of them even said something along the lines of, I don't know if this team is viable in the next 10 years.
Yeah, that really caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we all know, the team sucks and all that.
Right.
But, you could put a 15-year-old in charge of an NFL team, it would be literally viable in terms of an economic entity.
Right.
It doesn't take, Washington has had the worst owner around, and it's been economically viable. I didn't totally understand that quote really from whoever said that.
So what I'm wondering this is just speculation on my part. We've talked a lot about, and you've said if you build it and the team's good, people will show up, right?
Yes.
Odds are, Steve, if you build it, the team's not going to be good, because as long as Dan Snyder's in charge, problems keep happening. How many people show up if it's in Dumfries versus if it's, closer into D.C.?
Well, if it was a good team and a well-managed team, it wouldn't matter.
But Steve, that if is like me saying if unicorns existed at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. But he didn't say the stadium. He said the team being viable. I'd really like to ask that Virginia state congressperson what he meant by viable. Because, if they're talking about what you're talking about, which is are they good and are they going to fill up a stadium, that's one thing. But when I hear are they viable, that makes me think you think they're going to be in bankruptcy court, which is never going to happen, no matter how bad Dan Snyder is.
Sure.
So it was just kind of a strange quote. But if you take it the way you're going with it, sure. The state spends a ton of money, and we're going to get to that in a minute, only to have the team suck and, nobody shows up except for a bunch of, Giants fans.
Right.
If that's what he means, then, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because that's where I'm picturing it, is this question of, hey, guys, you're having games and 10,000 people show up in Dumfries, and it's not even worth it to, we built this whole city and no one's coming. That's my thought about the viability question. If you spend $10 billion on something that no one comes to, what happens?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't cost that much, but...
You don't think, like, if they did that whole city thing in the end, it wouldn't, with all the infrastructure?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. 2-3 billion, yes.
Well, I could see 2-3 for the stadium.
I mean, 2 billion's a bit much for a stadium. I mean, you gotta, like 1.5 would be kind of the top upper end, I think.
Okay.
And if you throw in a bunch of mixed use stuff around it, another billion or two. I mean, I think 10 billion's.
I'm just thinking you might have to add roads and infrastructure and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think it's a $10 billion project.
Okay.
That's a lot. I've never even done a project that big.
Well, the only reason I could see it eventually hitting something, if they put it way down 95 and like, well, we need to extend Metro out there, then you're going to skyrocket.
Well, yeah, I mean, putting Metro way down near Quantico is going to cost billions all by itself.
Right. That alone is like, just based off what the Silver Line's costing them, that's $8 billion. So that's like, I can.
Yeah, I'm not counting that.
Okay.
I mean, if you got to expand Metro 20 miles, that's another matter.
Yeah. That's. I'm saying like big picture. You are talking billions and billions and billions as it keeps expanding over
multiple billions.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, all right. You want to talk about the money part of it?
Yeah, and the reason why I'm scanning through my phone while I'm talking here is that Jason Wright had a quote I just saw this morning as I was preparing, and now I can't find it.
Was it that his thing about, well, we're not just going to go with the highest bidder? Is that the quote?
No, it was about the RFK site.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I know, I can't find it. But so
he did do that interview, and he said something along the lines of, look, we're just not going to go with the highest bidder just because. We're going to, which, again, this could all be spin.
Lie, by the way.
Yeah. You kind of have to go with the highest bidder because you don't have any money.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago, Virginia's proposal was about $1 billion in bonds.
Right.
Bond revenue. And so basically what that means is the state of Virginia sells bonds, whether a private equity sale or whether public bonds, and then they put that money into the construction projects, and then the state gets to pay all those bonds back over time via a combination of the revenue that from the stadium, because they're going to own the site, and then they have to raise taxes dramatically. And what local governments love to do for these kind of sports projects is they love to raise hotel and auto car rental taxes. And the reason they do that is that's a way they can constitutionally tax out-of-towners as much as possible. Even though taxing only out-of-towners is unconstitutional, but
it's a crafty way to do it.
Yeah, right. And so there's going to be some of that. But what has happened in the past week or two, is that the state of Virginia has apparently lowered its proposal to $350 million, which is just a drop in the bucket, basically, of financing, dramatically less, and that is in direct response to multiple legislators having a problem with giving Dan Snyder in particular that much money. It looks like it's more the Virginia Democrats than the Virginia Republicans that have that problem, from what I could tell from the quotes. I mean, I'm not local. But I can tell you $350 million, I mean, that means Dan Snyder would have to get a lot more funding. He could anticipate that the NFL would kick in some money, probably, a couple $100 million maybe.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or fashion. But so if Virginia only does $350 million, then that means Dan's going to have to finance the rest of it himself. So you're talking, even on the cheap, if assuming the NFL gives him a couple million, some money, that would be at a minimum $500 million, probably more.
So I was, listening to, I can't remember who, and they were saying that the NFL has a hard cap based off of how much they'll give, and it's $200 million.
Yeah, there is.
Which we saw just recently with the Bills stadium deal.
Well, that's why I said $200 million.
Yeah. So if you're doing 2 and then 350,
it was $350. So that's $550. So
Dan needs to come up with about $1 billion.
Well, I mean, he'd probably go on the cheap. You'd have to think. I mean, the lower end would be another 500 million or so, depending on what kind of development they do, and does the state of Virginia still own the site?
Right.
No, that hasn't really been addressed very much.
But they'd have to buy the land, right?
Somebody would.
Yeah. Someone, and so if they're saying 350, I'm assuming that's Virginia's it. Like, they're buying the land for 350 or something. Like, I don't know how much. What are they looking for? 400 acres, something like that.
Well, I mean, it have to be around that much.
Yeah.
To do what they want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking inside the Beltway, that's an enormous amount of money. But the sites that Virginia has picked,
right?
I find it hard to believe that you couldn't get that much for about 350 million. But I don't know the Virginia market like I do Texas.
Sure.
So.
Well, I think Landover, very different from Dumfries too. Like, that.
I know. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when it comes to the Virginia market, and like I know the housing market around here pretty well just because I like to surf Redfin. I don't know like that level of commercial real estate.
That's not commercial real estate at all.
Yeah.
That's totally different.
And you're talking huge swaths of land for real estate too.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think 400 acres is probably, for what they're talking about, it's pretty reasonable size.
Yeah, but I just don't. The price point of that I could easily see being 350 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
$1 million an acre. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like I said. I mean, in Texas, yes. In Virginia, I'd think at least that much.
Yeah,
maybe more.
Yeah. So you are talking about a crazy amount of money, and Dan Snyder's pretty far stretched right now.
Yeah, but it's not about that.
I know.
So
it's not just about that.
Well, again, it depends on how this is structured. But ultimately, one way or the other, the stadium serves as collateral.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make the money work. This is why Jason Wright was talking about having 100 events a year. Okay? The reason for that is if you're going to owe somebody $500, $600, $700 million,
right,
in a series of construction loans, because nobody provides all that much money by themselves, you're going to have a conglomerate of banks and lenders providing that money together. But you can't service debt like that with 8 games a year. And so, they have to turn it into, when Taylor Swift is on tour, she needs to come there.
Right.
When the Rolling Stones tour, when Metallica tours, all these huge names, they need to come there. That's when Jason Wright is talking about 100 events a year. 100 events a year, it's because they're going to have massive amount of debt service.
Right.
And he's talking about getting all of the biggest musical acts and whatever other acts, there are that go into stadiums.
Sure.
I don't know, circus, whatever else.
I don't know if there's circuses in football stadiums anymore.
Well, didn't Barnum and Bailey go out of business a couple
Barnum
years
Bailey
ago?
went out. Cirque du Soleil is really the only circus left at this point.
Okay, that's a bad example,
Yeah.
but basically it's concerts is what we're talking about
We're
here.
basically concerts, conventions, kinda, but you don't really do conventions in stadiums, right? Like,
no, you don't do conventions in stadiums. So but that's not to say they couldn't build. The plan couldn't include a convention center
right,
attached to it. But the problem is with conventions. I mean, Dumfries. You want a convention center to be near.
Right. Oh yeah,
city.
and I mean, well, look, that's going to be a problem for any of these types of events the further out you go.
Well, it won't be a problem for a concert. I mean, people will drive to that, but conventions like business conventions, that's tough.
Well,
I think.
So Steve, let's say you're Metallica, and you are told you could go play in Dumfries in a 65,000 venue, or you could play in the heart of DC in the Nats Park venue, which will hold 50,000 for a concert.
Okay, let me let you in on how.
I know they care about money. I know.
Nobody cares where it's located. The only thing that will matter is the offer that the local promoter makes, and the financial guarantee ahead of time. That's what matters. Nobody cares at all about where it's located. There's zero consideration to that at all.
I'm just saying, it's not like they aren't competing with venues that aren't already in the city.
Yeah, but I mean, a 50,000 seat venue, and for concerts, I mean, if that's what baseball it would be less so you got to figure 40 for like a Metallica show, I don't think you could get the kind of financial guarantee out of that as you could in a football stadium, where you could squeeze in 55 to 60. And then so your guarantee would be to Metallica or to pick your band would be more. So I just think that I hear what you're saying, but I'm just telling you, nobody cares about location. It's all about the financial guarantee that the local promoter can make. That is based on number of anticipated butts and seats.
Sure, and ticket prices, things like that too, obviously, which I guess that varies less and less now based off where you are.
No, it varies a lot, actually. The way ticket prices, it's not done what it used to be even a decade ago, where ticket prices was kind of fixed. These local promoters, it's kind of like car dealerships now. I mean, the ticket prices go up and down kind of with the market. So you could spend $1,000 on first 5 rows one day, and then a month later it might be down to 200 because of the way the market fluctuates.
Sure. And by the way, I know he's not something you would ever watch. John Oliver had a great thing about Ticketmaster and some of the scams they're running now a few weeks ago.
You're right. I would never.
Yeah, you would never watch it, but it was a fascinating look into the whole, like, some of these bands are scalping their own tickets now to make.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's insane. Yeah.
Well, you can't really blame them either. I mean, because what was happening was, this is why the market has changed so much, because it used to be that, the ticket price was fixed. You could buy the front 10 rows were worth, $200 each. They were going on like StubHub and selling them for $1,000.
Right.
So basically now the promoter is doing it themselves. They're jacking the prices up to $1,000, already. So that is happening.
Yeah.
I don't even necessarily call that a scam, to be honest. It's defeating the scalpers.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. But the fact that they're also going in, buying their tickets for the baseline price, and then going on the secondary market and selling them again,
they're doing that.
That is definitely shady.
It's kind of like, well, I don't know if I call it shady, because it's what people are doing to them.
Yeah.
Why is that shady?
I don't know. It just feels you're making money off of both sales then.
So?
Isn't that, it's kind of, I don't know, it's double dipping, it feels like.
I mean, again, if they weren't doing it, the scalpers would be doing it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they've also been trying to fight the scalpers and failing miserably. There's a whole lot in that.
Yeah, but it's gotten a lot better for them now, though, with the way these promoters are doing their pricing.
A little bit, yeah. We kind of got off on a tangent there.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. But what else is there to talk about?
Yeah. So in terms of stadium, he would need. Let's say he needs $1 billion, right? Just roughly, yeah. Roughly. He already owes $900 million or so for the buying out the other owners. He could.
I think it was more like 860 or something.
I saw 875, so I just rounded up.
Okay. What's a few billion between friends?
A few million.
A million. Yeah. If you're the federal government, it's like what's a few trillion between.
Yeah. Go ahead. Of course. So some people have speculated that he would probably just sell off that stuff that he bought back, so he could have the money to.
What kind of moron would get in bed?
Yeah, I know.
Dan Snyder.
The only way I could see that is if part of the agreement is said moron owns the stadium, not Dan Snyder.
That will never happen.
Yeah, I know. That's
not a realistic proposal, Alex.
It's the only way I would ever do it. I don't know about you.
I wouldn't do it, period. I wouldn't want to be in bed with someone, in business with someone like that.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I mean, that's not a thing that would happen.
Yeah, that's where it gets fascinating. I don't know how much money he could get out in a loan at this point.
I'm telling you, it's about the valuation of the stadium.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Dan Snyder would have to be a guarantor on it, but the major collateral is the stadium. This is also, by the way, why the NFL gives a little bit of money is because they do have an interest in reducing the debt, because if things do go totally haywire, they don't want like Capital One to own the stadium.
Right.
That's why the NFL kicks in money, but it doesn't really have a lot to do with Dan Snyder's personal finances. It has a lot to do with the valuation of the real property itself, and then the business income that's expected to be generated. This is again why Jason Wright is talking about 100 events a year.
Sure,
because you can't do this with 8 football games.
Right, and that's why he's saying it has to be a dome too, because
absolutely, because you can't get Taylor Swift to go play in an open air stadium in like September in DC and have it be viable necessarily.
Sure. Although I went and saw plenty of bands in October over the years out at Jiffy Lube Live.
Yeah, but you're not. We're talking about the biggest acts in the world here.
That was when Radiohead was doing a tour. They're one of the biggest acts in the world.
Radiohead is not in the same ballpark as Metallica and Taylor Swift. Okay.
I mean, they play 30, 50,000 seat venues.
They're not in the same ballpark at all as those kind of acts. Popular, sure. Weird music, yes. But we're talking about the largest acts in the world, and that is what Jason Wright wants to attract, and you have to have a dome.
Yeah, look, I understand that. Even though I philosophically think football played indoors should be outlawed, but
I know you think that. Yeah. Personally, I don't really care.
Yeah. I just it's better in
so the Jason Wright quote generally, I can't find it, but the Jason Wright quote generally was about the stadium, and he was lamenting the fact that RFK Stadium is not a viable site. The RFK Stadium site is not viable. His quote was steeped in silliness, but if you break out all of his whining and politics out of it, he was saying that it's the DC government does not have control over the site, which is something we've already known, and so for that reason it's not viable. He was whining about the local residents, and the DC should have the right to do this, and blah blah blah. It was just, his quote was garbage, but the central point, if you eliminate all that stupidity coming out of his mouth, was RFK Stadium is not a viable site.
There are so many hurdles, and until we have a definitive timeline, something along.
No, it was a bit more specific.
Okay, because I just found something, and it's got that blurb, and I'm like, that's not even a complete sentence for a blurb.
No, it's more than that.
Yeah. Look, RFK is not happening. People just need to move on. Like even people like me, who I would like dance around the stadium if I found out that RFK was happening, but it's not going to happen.
At some point, I would have been. Now I don't really care. But
right.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. It's just there's not. They already have plans, and it doesn't include the football team.
Oh, here it is. Okay, I found it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what the source of this is. Let me see.
Well, he just did a big interview. It's probably from that.
Of course, I just closed it. Give me one more.
Yeah.
One more time. Okay, so here the source is. This is Jake Russell. Who is Jake Russell?
Okay.
Washington Post.
Yeah.
So this is, but I think the quote comes from NBC Washington, but I found it on Jake Russell's Twitter page.
Yeah. Jake Russell's pretty good.
Right. This is the quote. Wright had this to say about DC and the old RFK Stadium site. It's hard to disagree with the fact that RFK is the spiritual home of the team. Yes, we all agree with that. He said, while Dan and Tanya Snyder and some fans are hoping for a return to the district, it doesn't appear to be an option for now, as DC does not have control of the RFK property. Here, and this is now that was part of the story. Here's another Jason Wright quote. It is incredibly unfortunate. I'll probably use the words "a damn shame" that the district, especially the ward where RFK is located, a heavily black area with brilliant leaders at the local and district level, do not control their own economic destiny, Wright said. It's not theirs to control, not theirs to develop, not even theirs to offer up. That is a quote from a dude who doesn't understand real estate.
Yeah.
That's the quote. It's just an ignorant quote by Jason.
Yeah, it's fine. At least he's correct. DC has no control. Although, if they did, Vincent Gray wouldn't use it for that anyway, because he wants to turn it into real estate development.
And he would be right. It would be far more valuable.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah. No, he just wants to build high-end condos for millionaires. That's because local politics. It's part of Ward 7, which is my ward, which is his, what he controls. Ward 7 is people like me and then lower middle class people. So like middle class, not a lot of commercial. There's not $1 million homes in Ward 7. Vincent Gray needs a lot of millionaires, so he has people to, go ask for money. That's what he really wants. So that's what he wants to see happen to that site.
DC governments.
Yep. Well, that's
one of the more corrupt governments.
All government. All government is this way.
Yeah, but DC is way worse.
I don't know. Virginia's getting pretty bad. They're willing to make a deal with the devil, it sounds like. So
I don't know. Some of them are. Some of them seem to not be.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the Virginia thing, and we're going to jump to the other stuff soon.
Okay.
It's fascinating to me how it's always the guys from Loudoun and Northern Virginia who don't want this done. It's not... You'd think they're the ones pushing it, and Richmond would be pushing back, and Norfolk would... No, it's the other way around in this case. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if I were a politician, I would have a problem with jumping into business with a guy like Snipes.
Oh, yeah.
But money ultimately controls all, and there's enough slimeball politicians out there that they could probably swallow. What's another moral virtue that to ignore,
right?
To politicians. So if they can make a buck. So my guess is it probably passes because politicians have no soul.
Yeah.
And so they'll probably do it.
Yeah. So we really should let's do the safeties, and we'll get back to some of this stuff just because I don't want to run out of time and forget to do safeties.
Okay.
All right. Because we do have like two more just bash the team things, and I we gotta not just do that.
Oh, come on.
I know. Hey, look, I have as much fun doing it as you do. Wrote this week about safeties, guys, is our draft preview. I had initially done safeties and corners together, which is why this one's probably a little thinner than some of the others. Sorry about that. Let me get into the big story with safeties, of course, is going to be Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, who is just a monster, huge, 6'4", 220, clearly a strong safety at that size. Not very fast. I think he ran a 4.59 in his pro day workout. He didn't do anything at the combine. But with his size, and he's got great instincts to, knowing where the play is going, and he's quick. When you get in short range, he's very quick. Fantastic safety in that regard. He is kind of a top 10 draft pick. If he falls to 11, this might be a guy they look at seriously. If you're like saying, who are the guys who are like top 10 blue chip guys, he's in that list. So like, he could definitely be a candidate for this team if he's still there at 11. So
is it wise to burn a first round pick on a safety this year, though? I mean, what's the roster look like? Cam Curl,
right?
Who's going to be a long term
Bobby
starter?
McCain,
who's on a 1 year deal?
Is it a 1 year deal again? Yeah.
Let me see. Hold on.
I thought it was maybe. It's one of those.
Hold on a minute. I'm going to get.
Yeah.
I've got it open.
The other guy they have is Derek Forrest, who they drafted last year.
He signed through 2023.
Okay.
McCain.
Okay. So they have Forrest, and they have Troy Apke, who doesn't really count.
No, I mean, but like starter levels, you're talking Curl and
McCain. Right. So you'd be bringing in a guy to probably kind of rotate in with Curl, play kind of the same Buffalo nickel vibe that Landon Collins played. If they really want to stick with that kind of scheme, it would make a lot of sense. And look, this guy has the type of talent where he could be a Pro Bowler.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It strikes me as perhaps not the highest and best use of that pick for Washington.
Yeah, I could make that argument too, that you're better off going linebacker, wide receiver, over a cornerback or safety.
But it's possible.
Yeah, those are the two biggest needs: is wide receiver, and like for next year, it's linebacker, wide receiver. You're 1 and 2, in whatever order you want to put them. I don't care. I would say secondary is right after that, though. Like it's not like it's not a need to make the secondary better. So that's where I could see this argument coming in. Of hey, he's there. Let's say there's 2 first-round linebackers. They're both gone. You got like a bunch of good receivers this year. Like it's a really strong receiver class. Maybe you're better off going with a Pro Bowl caliber safety and getting a receiver in the second round then. Like, those are the kind of conversations I'm sure the team's going to have. in that scenario. Other guy who I mentioned last week was Daxton Hill. He plays safety and corner. I think he's more of a nickel corner than a safety, but I'm just going to mention him again here just because I think he would be a great slot guy. That would be of interest to me, but he's more of a late first rounder.
Ron Rivera likes versatility.
He does. He really does. Then you have a couple guys who are kind of teetering on the end of the first round, probably more second rounders. Joaquin Baker out of Penn State and Lewis Seen out of Georgia. Both good, both physically. They're more like strong safeties, I think. They're well built for that kind of role. 6'2", 200, 6'1", 199 for both their sizes. So they're about
the same. Baker, by the way. It's actually Brisker. You said Baker.
Oh, did I say Baker? Right. All right. Sorry. Yeah. Brisker. They are very similar in how they play. Like, they're both physical downhill safeties. Sin from Georgia, he can play free safety a lot better. If they really thought they wanted a deep safety in the second round, he's probably the best bet.
You know what? The team is had such a hard time finding a viable free safety.
Yeah.
That if a guy like Seen, is it Seen?
It's Seen or Seen. I don't know. I didn't hear it when I was watching anything.
If he's a legit free safety,
yeah.
Almost any team would have to think about drafting a guy like that, because I just think it's very hard to find somebody who can do that and do that well.
It really is. And the more you think about it, like finding a guy who can just play deep center field for your defense, it's not a glory position. It just, like they're usually back to be the last man to beat. But there's less of them. There are a ton of guys who play strong safety, or they're kind of a tweener between strong and free. True free safeties are very rare in this league. Like we haven't had one since Sean Taylor. I mean, they've brought guys in. None of them have done it.
I mean, and Sean was like the pinnacle of free safety.
Yeah.
And obviously you probably can't find that again. I mean, he was,
right.
Kind of a generational talent.
Well, because he was also built like Hamilton. And still ran, but he ran like a 4.3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, he might have been a 4.5 guy, but he had game speed.
Yes.
A couple guys who are definitely going to be there in the later part of the second round. Joseph out of Illinois. He stood out to me as a guy. I wouldn't take him in the second round. If they somehow got a third round pick, I'd look at him. He's going to be a good special teams guy, and
you had him as day 2, and so that could be rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah. I have him as a day 2 guy, so he could definitely be there in the third if the team had a pick. He plays a lot of deep safety, which I like, and he's a gunner on special teams. And one thing we do need to remember: they lost to Shazer Everett. They need to find somebody to replace him on special teams because that's kind of what he did.
I think honestly they're looking at Troy Apke to be that guy.
I know we've been looking at Troy Apke for 4 years to be that guy, and I don't think it's really ever.
They keep bringing him back though because of his special teams ability.
I guess, but I don't know. I've never been a big Troy Apke guy.
Well, nobody is. Mr. and Mrs. Apke realize that he's not a great safety, but what he has done well is special teams, and that's why they keep re-signing him is for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know your drooling obsession over special teams. I get it, but you're right. They do need to find somebody to replace Everett, and if Joseph is one, maybe they ought to take a shot at him.
Yeah. If he's in the right spot, sure. Yeah. Jalen Peter out of Baylor.
Probably Petrie.
Peter. I don't know. However you want to pronounce it.
You speak as well as you write.
I do. So, when it comes to names, people need easier names. Stop having weird names of Earth.
John Smith.
Yeah. Yes. So the best asset this guy's got, he's played a lot. He's most of these guys are coming out in their third year. He's a 5-year player. So you'll get that experience thing right off the bat, which I think a lot of fans overlook, but teams, especially when you get to later round picks, I think there are certain GMs and teams that like guys who you're in your 5th-year seniors, and so you have that experience, a little more maturity too. You know what I mean? Nothing about his game really stood out to me when I was like watching highlights or anything like that. He did really pick up in his last 2 seasons, though. Like when you look at his numbers, you realize, yeah, it's 5 years, but he really only played the last 2 heavily. So, there's a bunch of day 3 prospects. I didn't want to go into them all. I did read that the team was at Nick Cross's pro day in Maryland. He's a local. He had the best combine numbers of any of the safety class, like the lowest 40 time. He had a great vertical, things like that. So he's just a freak athlete.
440, 37-inch vertical,
yeah,
130-inch broad jump.
Yeah,
130 inches is a 10-10. By the way, that's a pretty big.
Yeah, yeah. So he's a freak athlete, like
yeah,
and he's probably a 4th-round pick ish area. You always wonder when a guy has a good combine, does that make anybody take him early?
Yeah. I mean, it's happened for decades.
Oh, yeah. And then those guys don't do well.
Some of them do. Some of them don't. And I mean, there's been 1st-round picks that have, guys been drafted over their numbers. Josh Daxton probably might be one of them.
Yeah, that's fair.
In terms of Washington, but like Tony Baselli.
Sure.
Was one that was drafted on numbers. There's been a whole bunch of people that have been drafted on just numbers alone.
Yeah. And look, Steve, you and I are both numbers people. I think we fall in love with numbers a bit much. You got to kind of keep that from happening, I think, if you're a good team. I would worry more about personality. Are they mature? Are they going to get are they going to get in trouble off the field? That would concern me first before a lot of these numbers these days, especially after the last couple of years here in Washington. I don't need another Darius Guy situation,
No.
Yeah. The last one who I kind of looking around.
Darius Guys is apparently trying to make a comeback.
Yeah, I heard that. That's.
I mean, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
What else is he gonna do?
Right. He's got to make money. Doesn't he owe a ton of money to people too? Or wasn't that part of it? Like he'd taken out loans from his agent and never paid him back, or
I don't know.
I think I remember something. So there was one more good free safety deep ball guy, or deep middle field guy, Corker out of Kentucky, that stood out to me. This is a guy who I think you could get, after the 5th round, who maybe fits that true free safety role pretty well, where it's not glamorous, but he's going to be the last guy to beat, and he's tough to beat. And I stand by with what Washington does now in the front 7 and playing a lot of this weird Buffalo nickel. They need a free safety who's really just like playing the middle of the field all the time. They don't. I don't think Bobby McCain quite does that. I think he's more of a tweener. A lot of people list him as a corner still on websites, which is interesting to me. So, that's kind of my thinking.
I mean, I think he's sort of an all-purpose guy.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't know if he's great at anything, but
he's not bad at anything.
He can kind of come in and do whatever the team wants at a reasonable level. That's why he's back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely understand why he's back. Rivera likes him, thinks he's very football smart. So, yeah. Look, the safety class really, the first guy off the board is going to be the big name. It's that kind of, like, all these guys are okay, I'm sure. You'll see some guys surprise. They'll come out like we did with Cam Curl.
He kind of came out of nowhere,
right. But you're going to have a bunch of those guys this year, I think.
Yeah, great job scouting.
Yeah. It's all about finding a guy with good range and personality fit. That's what it all matters, right?
And his ability to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you are right about the numbers because I mean, a lot of people get obsessed on the numbers, and I think we do a pretty good job here at the Hog Staff not doing that.
Yeah, I always have to remind myself it doesn't matter, but yeah.
Well, and especially like in wide receivers, people really get hooked on 40 time in wide receivers. But if you really look through the history of NFL, there's only a handful of receivers who have really good 40s who ended up being good receivers.
Right.
Like that scumbag Tyreek Hill, because he is a scumbag and a horrible human being, is one of them. You know, from a football perspective, a burner, he's got it all. But most of these burners, and most of them are drafted by the Raiders, ended up bust because they got by on their speed for so long. They don't really have NFL quality route running ability in hands.
Right.
So yeah, I'd almost kind of rather have someone who doesn't have that.
I mean, other than maybe Deshaun Jackson,
there's a handful of them. Like I said, there's been a handful.
I can't think of anybody who had a stellar 40 and like was able to put it all together. There's a few.
Yeah,
but
and Terry McLaurin sub 4.4, is another one.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin had good speed, but when you watch him on the field, he doesn't necessarily play that pure speed receiver game.
He doesn't look like Deshaun Jackson,
right? He's just not running streak routes all the time. Like
no, he's much better than that.
Yeah, he's a more balanced receiver than most of those guys. And look, that's what you're always thinking whenever you see a guy with like a 4.2 something. It's like you're just gonna run deep. All I'm gonna do is have you run deep. It doesn't work that way in the NFL.
Who knows if he can even catch?
Right. Really, that's the thing that made Jackson so great was he was so good as a receiver, tracking the ball and catching it, not just getting deep.
That's safety, kids.
That's safeties. Not the most exciting position. I always tell Steve, whatever positions no one wants to do, I'll do. That's how the free agency and draft write-ups go.
That is it. I usually say, Alex, I need you to do safety. Nobody volunteered for it.
All right, I'll do it. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we have a couple minutes left? There were two more topics that did come up. First off, Roger Goodell saying Dan Snyder's not involved in the team, blah, 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 blah. And then we get reports that not only is Dan Snyder, he's been talking to Rivera and Jason Wright the whole time. It's not like he's not, it's not.
Anybody who thinks that Dan Snyder hasn't been involved on a day-to-day basis is hopelessly naive.
And he has officially, or not officially, but he's basically resuming day-to-day operations much more openly at this point, is what we're learning.
People are going to hate me for this, and that's fine. Who cares? Yeah. But I mean, Tanya Snyder is not a business person.
No.
Tanya Snyder was a model and a mother, and there's great value in that. But one thing she's never done is run a company.
Sure.
And now Dan Snyder's not good at it either, obviously, but he thinks he is.
Right. He's at least done it.
And he lives in the same house as his wife.
Sure.
And so anybody who thinks that Dan hasn't been, the wizard behind the curtain in Oz is just fooling themselves. He's been running and he's been doing this the whole time.
But Steve, it's a very big house. So like
yeah, it is a very big house, but still.
Yes, they could live in the same house and never see each other. It's so big.
I guess my point is this isn't really up Tanya's wheelhouse to the best of my observation.
Right.
And so I think Dan has been in charge the whole time.
Oh, no question.
Which is sort of what,
It was just very funny that Goodell's like, well, Daniel hasn't been involved, and there's interviews with Wright and Rivera all talking about having talked to Dan all year.
Of course.
And look, did anyone think it would be any other? If it wasn't a formal suspension, this is what was going to happen. Now, I think if the NFL had somehow said, you are formally suspended and can't do X, Y, Z, maybe there would have been a bit more push to.
No.
But
first of all, no owner gets suspended like
I know.
that. They suspended Jim Irsay by saying, you can't attend the games.
Right. Well, not the same sport, but didn't Steinbrenner get suspended like that for a year or something? Way back.
George Steinbrenner? Yeah. Oh, God, I can't remember.
Yeah, I feel like there have been a couple in baseball or in the NBA over the years.
At the end of the day, here's the thing. At the end of the day, these people own controlling interest in their team.
Right.
In the NFL, what the NFL can do is stop them from being involved in the governance of the league, but what they can't do is stop them from governing their own team.
Right.
Oh,
I know. The suspensions are all just window dressing, but
for owners, they are.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I got news for you. If the owner isn't there, it doesn't really impact how the team plays that much. That's the other thing.
Well, I mean, if you have an owner that has infected every aspect of the team, as Washington does,
yeah, it might make them better. That's true. Yeah. But I don't think there's many owners who actually make the team better by being there. Necessarily, like, yeah, you can make decisions on trades and.
Well, I mean, the job really. I mean, when it comes to on the field product, right. The owner needs to set the culture,
right?
And the good ones do. That's why, again, I mean, people wonder why teams like the Steelers win all the time, and New England, and pick your basketball team. It's because they have strong ownership,
right?
That sets a winning culture, and that's sort of what Alex Smith was talking about. To come all the way back around to that, is that Smith is talking about having an owner that has established a positive winning culture, or you establish chaos. And because Dan doesn't know what the hell he's doing, he's established chaos.
Right.
And compare that to the Rooney family, who doesn't let any of this stuff happen. And what do? They win.
Right. And let's keep in mind, there are different types of successful winning cultures. There's different ways to go about doing that.
It's like Pittsburgh dropped Antonio Brown in a nanosecond.
Right.
When he became a problem child, we will not put up with
right.
that. Washington, they wouldn't have done that.
No, they would do everything they can to make it work.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, there's different ways to win a championship in every sport. So that's kind of what just my point was there. Last thing we should mention, the whole, because I feel like you're going to want to go off on this for a while. Congress, there's a rumor that they're now investigating Dan Snyder's finances with the team. That this is stemmed out of their hearing about the sexual harassment. And the word is that they've gotten wind that the team keeps 2 sets of books, one off the record, one on the record, from one of the former financial guys from the team. That's what the scuttlebutt is.
Why is Congress involved in the ongoing business operations of one non-publicly traded, closely held private corporation? It is a gross, pathetic, awful, disgusting misuse of congressional resources. I'm all for all bad things happening to Dan Snyder. Don't misunderstand me. But the idea that Congress doesn't have better things to do than to look at one closely held private company is just, it just makes me sick to my stomach. This is why if you look at the professions that are trusted the least in the country, Congress is always the least trusted.
Yeah, yours is up there, though.
Yeah, it is, and for good reason.
Right.
But Congress is usually number one, and there's a reason for that.
Oh, yeah. No question
Look
there.
at what they're doing. So I think it's just awful that Congress has any involvement in it whatsoever. And there was a GOP congressman that put that out in a statement, and I agree. Whoever that congressman was, I totally agree with you, dude. But in terms of this, I don't know. I mean, there was evidence to back up the sexual harassment claim stuff. This stuff just strikes me as unfounded babble at this point. We see no evidence of him doing that. And why would he do that, more importantly?
Right. Well,
who's he hiding it from? He doesn't have anybody to report to.
So it is a question if it is what they're saying and the team's keeping 2 sets of books. It depends on what you're doing with them, right? Like, you could keep 10 sets of books as long as you're not giving the fake books to the IRS. I think you're okay.
I mean, you have to be crazy to pull those kind of shenanigans.
This is Dan Snyder we're talking about.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, I think he is that level of crazy and stupid.
It's not like this is not a publicly traded company where maybe you have to full stockholders. It's not even. I mean, it's just the Snyder family that owns this. I don't really understand why he would have to do that.
The only things I can think of. So my first reaction is: are you keeping a fake set of books for the IRS, which would obviously be like the Al Capone situation?
That's suddenly send him to jail.
Yeah, that's when you go to jail. Somebody else brought this up. Could they be keeping a set of books that's their real set of books, and then one that they show to like the players to lie about how much money the team's making?
They don't have to show anything to the players. They don't show books to the players.
Well, doesn't the players union look at the finances of the league and all that stuff?
Not in depth like that. No, they
okay.
You know, the NFL ownership has gone to great lengths to keep the players union from seeing those books.
So that was another
that's
theory. The only other theory I have is, what if they were keeping a set of books saying, hey, here's how much we made in stadium revenue for the revenue sharing, and it was more, and they were hiding it from the other owners?
I think it's more likely. I don't think that. I think that's not realistic. The only thing that would maybe be realistic is Dan Snyder's got a ton of debt right now, and if he's trying to hide some debt and kind of manipulate it in a way that would make it more viable for him to get whatever new financing he needs for whatever it is.
Sure, that could be it.
Maybe that. That would be, of everything that you have said. Of course, I said that.
Yeah, you said that. No, I think I was just putting out some of the weirder things I'd heard.
But I don't even in that case. So I don't know. I just don't get it, and not really buying it.
I would need more proof, obviously.
Unfounded nonsense that Congress is wasting their time on.
We would need real proof, not just some speculation, or like whoever it is that may be even saying it would have to come forward. You know, you can't do this anonymously, that kind of thing.
Congress shouldn't be doing it at all.
Yeah, if he has two sets of books and it goes to the IRS, that's a different story.
And then he's going to, like you said, go to jail Al Capone style.
Yeah. And get syphilis, Al Capone style, all that stuff.
Or Wesley Snipes style.
Yeah. I forgot Wesley Snipes went to jail for that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he got like 2 or 3 years. He got a pretty long sentence.
He's about as short as Dan Snyder, too.
Yeah, that's true. That is also very true about Wesley Snipes. He's short. People don't know how short he is.
Yeah, he is short guy.
Yeah. Now, buff, he has a very different body type from Dan Snyder.
Yeah, Dan Snyder, yes. Wesley Snipes, not a lot of similarities other than
height. Yes.
Height. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the last little update we had to put out there.
I'm actually on the side of the team in that part of it. In that, I don't think Congress should be doing this, and I'm not buying this financial stuff absent seeing more evidence.
Yeah, I would. I can't put even the story when I read it. I was like, "There's not a lot of detail in here. This is just." You're saying something that somebody... It didn't even make it sound like a member of the Congress was saying it. It was like, we heard something, just putting it out there.
Well, that is what they were saying. That's what they're saying is somebody came to them with
right.
This. But I just don't, again, I don't understand why he would have to do that.
Yeah.
What's he hiding? Who's he hiding from?
The financing thing is the only one that really would make sense. And you would know if that is that like even a crime, or I don't know.
Well, I mean, you could.
I'm sure it would cause problems.
The FBI gets involved in bank fraud,
right?
If the numbers are big enough. So yeah, I mean, you could dream up some crimes with that.
Sure.
You could. But I think more realistically, it would just get you dumped by your lender.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, the FBI does get involved in bank fraud as a crime.
Sure.
And the FBI gets involved in it because banking is done via interstate commerce,
right.
And so it becomes a federal thing.
Yeah.
That I have had to report bank fraud before to the FBI, and I was told in my case that we don't care about your problems because it's not big enough to interest us.
Right.
I talked to an FBI agent about it, and that's what he said.
It was a small fish.
Call the local cops, and that's what he told me.
Right.
Because in their world, it was a 7-figure problem, but in their world, it was like
right. They're looking for 8-figure problems for pull.
That was yes.
Yeah.
That was yes. That's literally what we told you. So this isn't big enough for us to mess with.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's something. If there is anything, it would probably be more something like that than, whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that covers all the nonsense with this team this week.
Is anybody surprised that I've talked to the FBI about bank?
No, I'm not. I've never had to talk to the FBI about anything like that, other than helping some people with some background checks over the years. Yeah. All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week. And until then, I hope you have a good week.